Hello everybody, Heather the Bard here, and so today for this week's ukulele lesson, I want to talk about some notational things that you will see if you are learning fingerstyle ukulele or trying to play classical music on the ukulele and then learning from notation. So specifically, what I want to talk about is things like this right here and that right there. This is from Tony Mizen's book, The Baroque Ukulele. If you're interested, and I personally think these are wonderful books. I'm not paid to say that. I'm not asked to say that or in any way. I just have used these books myself, and I think they're fantastic. He's got one called From Lute to Uk, and also this one, which is the Baroque Ukulele, and I believe he has one more called the Romantic Ukulele, which is a couple musical eras after this one. There may also be one called the Classical Ukulele, but don't quote me on that yet. But he's done these wonderful books. They have standard notation as well as tab in them. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, tab is a nice map of your fingerboard, and it tells you exactly what frets and what strings to press. So this type of notation, this CVC2, this is really common in ukulele notation like this. It's really common in classical guitar music. I believe, I don't have a concrete example of how many other places it will show up, but it is something very common and specific to fretted string instruments. So what does this mean? We have a C and then we have a Roman numeral. C stands for capo tasto. If you are familiar with my other video from last week on the introduction to chord theory, you'll recognize that capo tasto sounds kind of like capo. It's the same thing. What it indicates is that you want to do some type of a bar chord. In some places you will see, instead of a C, you'll see a B. B stands for bar. Now the Roman numerals that come after it, what that means is that's indicating what fret. So if you see a CV or C5, that means that you will want to bar on the 5th fret and then orient the rest of your fingers where they need to be. You see a C2, that means you bar on the 2nd fret and you orient your fingers. C3, and so that tells you where you need to bar, and then you just play the rest of it with the unused fingers. So one thing to keep in mind when looking at these, this is the arranger's, the performer's, the composer's suggestion. Some people, like myself, I have rather large hands for a lady. They're not wide, but I have really, really long fingers. My fingers are as long as a guy's fingers. Trying to play a bar chord and then do whatever I need to do with these other fingers can sometimes feel really cramped and kind of put tension in places in my hand that I don't particularly like. People with short fingers, smaller hands, may find it easier to play a bar chord and do what they need to do. I suggest, personally, as a teacher, that you play it both ways a few times through to see which feels more natural, which feels more comfortable. When I say natural and comfortable, I'm not meaning in reference to how things feel or don't feel when you're learning them. When you're learning a piece of music, when you're learning new fingerings on your instrument, things by that nature of their newness will feel a little strange and a little weird. What I'm talking about feeling weird or strange in this case is in reference to how relaxed is your hand? Are you carrying any extra tension in your hand, in your wrist, in your arm here when you're trying to play? Are you really, really, really straining to try and get your fingers in alignment in a way that, you feel like maybe you're fighting your body? Don't fight your body. I'm a really big proponent of learning to play and paying attention to your own body mechanics and ergonomics. Music should feel relatively comfortable to play. There's no reason to strain and stretch and cause yourself strain, injury, discomfort while you're playing. It should feel comfortable to play. It should feel good for your body in addition to your ears and your heart. So play these through a few times. See which ones feel good to your hand. A little bit of stretching is all right. If you're stretching so hard that you feel like you're going to cause yourself a hand cramp, try something different. There's some of these bar chord notations in some music that I've played where it is actually easier for me to just play according to, put one finger on which one, stretch this one out and do this, do one of these numbers, than it is to try and do something like this. So it's just up to you. Ultimately, you are the person who's learning to play the music. Your body is not built like everybody else's body. Your body's unique to you. Learn to work with it. So if you see these types of notations in your music with the C, V, C, I, C, IV, whatever they are, just know that is suggested that you use a bar chord. But it's not required that you use a bar chord. If it's ultimately more comfortable for your hand to just play it as is, play it as is. If it's more comfortable for you to do something a little different and use one finger per note and do that, then do that instead. But this is so you know. The C stands for capotasto, and the Roman numerals stand for whatever number the frets are on your fingerboard. So, I'm Heather the Bard. If you have questions, drop them for me below. Find me on Facebook, the Bard's Ukulele Study Group. You can have discussions. You can post snippets of your playing for review. You can connect with other people here in the Pacific Northwest and maybe get together and practice. Other than that, I just aim it to be a supportive learning environment. You can also hit me up on Steemit, steemit.com/@ Heather the Bard, and I post all my lessons there. I post my lessons on Facebook. And other than that, if you enjoyed this lesson, consider tossing a buck in my PayPal tip jar. I'll leave a link below, and happy playing. Have a great week. Bye.